Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. Understand EBS and Hyperion road mapping. What are your options? Before we get started, I'm just going to go over a few housekeeping items. First, this webinar will be recorded and you'll receive a link to access the recording tomorrow via email. Second, for the duration of the webinar, all participants will be on mute. However, we encourage you to ask questions. If you would like to ask a question, please use the questions box to do so. We will answer all of your questions at the end of the session. And finally, if you experience any audio or technical difficulties, please use the chat box to let us know so that we can address those issues. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Deborah Lilly to get us started.
Thank you. As she said, thank you very much for being on this call today. So my name is Deborah Lilly. I don't know, I've worked with Oracle applications for about 27 years, which puts me originally in the EBS camp. But I've worked, on hundreds of implementations with customers. I was very privileged to I'm very passionate that users should have a say in what Oracle are doing, and in Oracle that model is through user groups. So I've always been part of user groups, and was very privileged when Oracle started to build the cloud applications that I had the opportunity to represent user groups worldwide on users' say into the application. That led to me being asked to be part of Oracle's advocate program, the Oracle ACE program. And today there are just 4 at the top level ACE directors responsible for the cloud applications. And I'm incredibly privileged to be one of those. My feelings about cloud especially is that that relationship with the vendor, with Oracle, is even more important today as everything happens in short sprints. So I still very passionately believe that we should be working with Oracle. And my role within InnoApps is really about being an advocate for the customer so that the customer can be successful. That's the official introduction. I love talking about Oracle. I love scuba diving more, but I've damaged my shoulder. It's in a sling, so I can't scuba dive, so I'm talking about Oracle today. Anyway, this presentation, as I say, I work for InnoApps. I'm not really going to do any marketing about InnoApps, just to say that I chose to come to InnoApps because they do Oracle only. I'm very passionate about the software. I love what it does, what all of the software can do. And so I wanted to work for an organization that only does Oracle. But I wanted an organization that did everything Oracle, because no part of an organization's IT estate stands in isolation. So either it needs some technology to link it together, or other applications to run alongside it. So I wanted an Oracle-only employer that did everything. And I think that's what this slide says. And what is it that we actually do? So as I said, we do both the technology and the applications. Where we recognize that can't work in isolation, that we have to work with the organization to bring in the change that might need, and then it's not enough just to put your application in. That application needs to grow for your organization, and it needs to run. So we do managed services as well, and we have accelerators and experience that back that up. So that's what's InnoApps in a nutshell, and why I chose to work for them. And we do both the cloud and on-premise applications, which is really important for you as the audience, because that's what we're talking about. I've seen a lot of organizations, including some that I've worked for, that are very are very wedded to cloud and no longer look after customers that are on premise. And I don't think that's right. I said in the abstract that no answer is wrong if you can articulate why your organization is doing something. And that's not just about whether you should move to cloud or not, that's about whether you should apply a patch or anything else. There is no wrong answer if you have assessed everything and can articulate why that's the right answer for your organization. And in InnoApps, we had started in the what Oracle call the on-premise world, and we had done an awful lot of cloud, but we weren't taking on new on-premise customers. And we realized that there were so many, and we'll go into this in a bit, so many organizations that have no intention of moving. And actually, they needed partners who understood that, but who also understood what the options were so that they could be having the conversation that we're having today. So, just over a year ago, we grew our company by buying another managed service organization and then having on-premise as a very important stream in our organization. So just before I move on from that slide, what do I mean by on-premise? Or Oracle call that their Applications Unlimited. So I have a Applications Unlimited mug here, and that would be those organizations that are running eBusiness Suite or Hyperion or JD Edwards or PeopleSoft or Siebel. That's what Oracle call their Apps Unlimited. And the reason they don't call them on-premise is because many organizations run those applications on an Oracle cloud infrastructure. So that's why within Oracle, this is called Apps Unlimited, which is the support program that Oracle introduced when customers said, we don't all want to go to the cloud applications, some of us want to stay where we are. And so Oracle brought out this support program that's called Applications Unlimited, and it absolutely means we have no limit to these applications from a support point of view. We are going to continue to support your applications, which is why it's not wrong to stay where you are. So that was my introduction. And what are we going to talk about today? So we're not going to do a roadmap. I can't tell you from my study in my house in Northern Ireland what your organisation should do. I can't do that in an hour. What I can do is tell you the things that you should be considering and think about each of those things in the light of your organisation. And if I was doing road mapping for your organisation, I would want to start by understanding your organisation and what it is that your organisation does. And then what is the strategy for your organisation? And within that strategy, what's your technology strategy? And when I understood that, then we would start looking at some of these considerations for your organisation, and then we could have a more personalised roadmap. So as I said, what we're trying to do today is look at those considerations. And anyone that's on this call, if you want me to do this call again for your organisation, then I'm happy to do that. So if there's one of you today, and if at the end of it you think it's valuable, then let us know and we'll rerun it again for your organisation. So it's a bit more personal, but again, it will be considerations, not an actual roadmap. We can do that, but it's a much longer piece of work. So what I want to do today is look at one slide, which is really good. It's always been one slide, but it's really good because my mouse control isn't very good at the moment with one hand, and it's not my best hand. So many years ago, I wrote a magazine article for a user group on what to consider. What should you do? Should you keep your on-premise applications and run them on Oracle Cloud, or OCI as they call it, on their infrastructure, or should you move to cloud applications? And I wrote it because I'd had that conversation with many people who had no intentions of doing it early on, and this was probably 7 or 8 years ago, so in the early days of cloud applications. But people were confused because they felt that Oracle themselves were confusing them. And then I turned it into a presentation, and all of a sudden user groups around the world said, would you do your road mapping presentation for us, or what to consider? And so I did, and as I spoke to users at events and asked them why they wanted this presentation, it was because they were getting confusing messages from Oracle, but it was because they weren't having a single conversation. So their technical account manager would be saying, oh, stay where you are and move on to cloud infrastructure. And their apps account manager would be saying, you should move everything to cloud applications. And that's not a direct criticism. It is a criticism because a customer wants a holistic, simple conversation, and it is getting better within Oracle, but customers get confused. They don't understand if they're getting 2 different messages, both of which are very compelling, what's the one they should do. And actually, if we come up to the current day, one of the things that AI promises us isn't just options and answers, it's recommendations. So, if I go back to the Amazon, other people who've read this book have read this, or you watch this movie, how about these other movies? People like recommendations. And if you're getting 2 opposing recommendations, then that's not helping you with your decision making. So that's why this is a popular presentation. And every single time I do it is different. And it's different because I get different questions, and I love questions. So Marissa said, if you've got a question, put it in there, and hopefully we'll have time at the end to do it. So there's only one slide, because the idea is that this is part of a magazine article. And really, once you understand your organization's strategy, what does your organization do? And that seems a daft question. Like, surely we all know what our organizations do, but you will be amazed at how many times people who I've spoken to find it difficult to articulate that. Right? So if I look at us as an organization, we provide those services that I showed you. We're doing only Oracle, all of Oracle, right? And we do that in managed services, we do that in implementations, and we do that in advisory and enterprise change scenarios. So we know what it is that we do. And then what is our IT strategy? Well, we don't have a data center. We used to have it. Well, we used to have data centers for running our organizations. We now provide all of our customers, or most of our customers, either run on their own systems or they run in the cloud, but that includes a private cloud. So we do utilize the data center, but we'll come to that later. But our IT strategy is that we don't have hundreds of data centers that belong to us personally, and we work with our customers to make sure that they get the best answers for their organizations with the investment that they've made in Oracle technology and the applications. So having understood that, so think about your organization. What is it that you are trying to do? And what is it that you are, and how is it that your organization wants to work? What's its IT strategy? And having understood that, then the system that you're using today, and we talked here about this being eBusiness Suite or Hyperion, but actually any of those Apps Unlimited products, does that system work well for you today? Does it do everything that you need to do it? I don't know who's on the call, so I don't know the answer to that. But think about what we use these applications for. So we use them for probably our back office. So the things that help us run our organization, the finance in our organization, the people in our organization, the customers that our organization has. And if that's all that we're doing, then the chances are, well, it's not all that we're doing, but if it's core, that core part of what you do, then the chances are the system works perfectly well for you and there's no need to move. You're getting exactly what you need today, possibly, right? The ones where I see that that's less so is where actually you're pushing those applications and you are doing things that make your organization different. So part of your industry. So us, InnoApps, we're what you would call professional services. So we do things and we bill for our time for doing that. Therefore, the projects part of Oracle is how we determine what we've spent, the time that we've spent for a customer, and that is how we bill our customers. So we are Oracle users ourselves. We have cloud applications and applications that we've written ourselves for the things that are very specific to us. But that's what we do. So we're pushing, or not pushing, but we're doing more than just doing our accounts. We actually do our billing and our project, so collecting the time that goes into a project, and that comes from that as well. But I know organizations that have some very specific things that are very industry specific or very organization specific. And therefore there may be additional things that they need. But if your system does today what you need it to do, then think about the cost. So it might do everything that you need it to do, but it might be the last application in your data center. And going back to the IT strategy, your IT strategy is wherever possible to run a cloud so that at some point you can decommission your data center. So, but if it works well and it does what it's meant to do, then you know what? Stay where you are, right? It's long gone of the days when we spent money in IT just because there was something new and shiny. So if what you're doing works, it's easy and cost effective to run, then stay where you are. And as I say, as long as you can articulate that and you've assessed that, then that's not the wrong answer. If it does work well, or if you have some issues, look at the product that you've got today. Is it the latest version? So I don't want anybody to compare the application that they run today with another application until they're comparing the latest version of what they've got. Because remember, by its very nature, your on-premise or your Apps Unlimited system, you own. You're paying a support model, and moving to cloud changes that to a revenue model where it's a subscription model. So think about that investment that you've made. If it works, would moving to the latest version give you more of what you need? Is the missing functionality that you need in a later version? That actually brings me on to shelfware, because I take a lot of customers from on-premise to cloud. And when we look at what they call the Chemleys or the customizations that they've got in the system, often the customizations that they've got are now standard functionality. They've had that system for so long, they built it themselves in the very early days. Oracle came along with the functionality, and although that would have worked, they never moved over to it, right? So, or they did a technical upgrade. This is very common, a technical upgrade to get to the latest supported version, but never looked at what new functionality had been delivered. So it may be that just by moving and using the functionality of the latest version, then what you own will deliver what you need. And then we go back to the, if that's running well and it's cost efficient, then stay still. Once you've upgraded, you may stay still. I'm just going to point out here that in eBusiness Suite, they have, I find it very confusing. Well, not confusing, but you have to listen to the whole presentation to understand exactly where they are. But support for eBusiness Suite, or for all of the apps unlimited, has at least another 10 years. And you will have seen very recently there was an update in that year. That does not mean that there is only 10 years. I make that very clear because Oracle only have that 10-year window because they don't want to go further around revenue recognition. They don't want to say to you, or they can't say to you, or will still be around in 11 or 12 years, because the market, you know, it's very clear, regulations very clear that people might make buying decisions based on that information. So Oracle will only give you a 10-year window. And every year you see that go up another year. As they come into their last financial quarter, which is where they are now, you see that move up another year. That's not because they've suddenly decided to extend it a year. It's because they've moved into that window in the calendar. There is no plan to turn off those applications at that point. What will drive when they decommission those systems will be when there's no customers left on it, right? And today, that is not a problem. Today, there are plenty of customers on all of those applications. That 10-year window is still well worth it for Oracle, because they have a lot of customers running a lot of mission critical systems and organizations that are on those systems. So that's the first thing I'd say. However, I would say that if you're on eBusiness Suite and you look at the what's the latest supported, that there is a need to go to 12.2.7 by next July. Okay, so it's not enough to be on 12.2. You will need to be on 12.2.7 by next year, because they've changed the baseline by which they do the error correction on it. Okay, so in eBusiness Suite, some of those things are worth pointing out. So people got confused over the COVID time. So if you think over the COVID time, for a lot of the early days, nobody knew what was going to happen. So a lot of organizations put upgrade projects on hold, or it simply wasn't the priority for their business. And that's perfectly understandable. The message at the time was that 12.1 was going to be out of support in the near future, but 12.2 was still supported. And everybody knew that Oracle was extending the support by a year every year. So there was a naivety amongst customers that felt that it didn't really matter if they hadn't moved from 12.1, Oracle would just extend it like they did every year. But as I said before, that's not what the problem was. The problem was they could only give you that 10-year window, and therefore the product itself would still be supported for at least 10 years. But the 12.1, they didn't change the date. because that they were taking out of support 12.1. They needed people to be on 12.2, and actually they need people to be on 12.7 or above. So if you're not on 12.7, you still probably got one more upgrade left. And then the way that eBusiness Suite works, it's going to be patching or updates rather than upgrades like you had before. Now there are still a lot of customers that are on. There's about at least 10% that are still on 12.1, and actually there's about 2% of the customer base that are still on 11i. They're definitely not supported, but there are still some customers that are running that. So just think about, are you on the latest version? And if you do want to compare to a cloud version of the functionality, make sure you're comparing like for like, that you're comparing the latest version of your on-premise investment with the, obviously when you're talking to your Oracle rep, they will be demoing to you the latest version of cloud. Okay, now if your system works absolutely well and it delivers what you want and you're on that latest version, but it's causing problems in your data center or your managed service provider, if someone hosts it for you, then consider moving that. Should that be Oracle Cloud, so the OCI, or a managed service with a private cloud? So we offer both. In our apps, there are some customers who, for their own reasons, whether it be an industry need or a geographical need or just a preference, want all of the benefits of Oracle Cloud, but they don't actually want to hand their systems over to Oracle. And so we've got an Oracle Cloud appliance where we have built an InnoApps private cloud. Same functionality, or almost the same functionality, but would absolutely happily discuss that further with anybody. But that idea of moving your system to be hosted either on Oracle's cloud technology, Oracle OCI, or their cloud technology on a private cloud is a really good option. And it may also be that that you actually just want to hand it over to a partner. Again, ask InnoApps. I find it very entertaining, but one of the most often conversations that I have with people who are considering going to a managed service for the first time ever on a system that they've had 10, 15, perhaps even 20 years, is because the workforce, the people who looked after that system, are coming up for retirement. Now, I started this presentation by saying I'd done 27 years in the Oracle ecosystem, and I'm planning my retirement. So I would have been one of those people. That's one of the things that we look at in our organization. We have people with lots of experience, but they're not all about to retire. And so sometimes, the managed service option, that's why people are doing it as well. Okay. So, absolutely fine to stay where you are. And, I think Cliff Godwin, who owns eBusiness Suite, talks about eBusiness Suite is a system that you own, and you love. And people love the on-premise applications because there's that familiarity. They're also very mature. They do not have a lot of problems. But also, with the big difference between on-premise and cloud is that ability to customize them. And over the years, people have built some amazing customizations, and they want to carry on using them, and they're very organization specific. I would say that having a lot of customizations is not a reason not to go to cloud. I hear a lot of people say to me, oh, I've got 1,000 customizations, I couldn't possibly move to the cloud. Undoing those customizations would be horrendous. And then you're not even allowed to do them when you move to cloud. They're myths, right? You will not need all of them. There will be a number that are no longer your responsibility. You know, I bet all of you have got something in your database that says, oh, we're going to run out of space for an index. Well, you don't need that in the cloud because it's being monitored by the vendor, by Oracle. So you wouldn't need any of those. Most of your reports wouldn't be needed. There's a big push to pushing data out to people rather than having it in lists, because that's how we got data out when these systems were written. There will be customizations which are now covered by standard functionality, or you will get the same outcome a slightly different way. And then you'll get down to those core things that are important for your organization, which can be extensions. So you can't customize, but you can extend. Okay, so will the cloud applications, will the software as a service deliver what you want? So you're not happy with what you've got today, or there's functionality that's new. So if I look at those areas that I talked about finance. Do we do finance the way we've always done finance? Yes, but technology has moved on an awful lot. So if I look at Hyperion, one of the wonderful things about Hyperion, I just look at planning and budgeting, that enabled us to centralize the information that we previously did in 100 different spreadsheets. It allowed us to use workflow to find out who had updated it and who hadn't, and to bring it all together as a single source of truth, and then integrate that with our accounting systems, right? That's still the same in the cloud. There are some clever bits of functionality that are additional, but if that's what you want, that works. You know, that still works in the on-premise Hyperion today. However, I understand that some Hyperion versions may no longer run on the browsers or the operating systems or the technology stack that you own. So the application would still work, but that infrastructure is more challenging. So Oracle OCI would allow you to do that. So the Oracle cloud infrastructure will allow you to get more use out of Hyperion than perhaps your traditional tech stack did. Now, finance processes have not changed an awful lot between the on-premise applications and the cloud. The technology that underpins them does. If you use projects, or if you have complicated hierarchies and summary accounts in eBusiness Suite, you will be blown away by how easy it is to slice and dice and investigate your data in cloud because of the technology that underpins it. And actually, that technology came from Hyperion. But as you start to move to how we deal with customers and how we deal with people, we deal with them very differently today than we did 15, 20 years ago, even longer, when these applications were being written. Therefore, there is a lot of new functionality in those modules that, as well as the new technology, that you will absolutely love. And so it may be that there's functionality that drives you. And actually, I think that it should be the functionality that drives you to cloud rather than my system doesn't work anymore. So if you look at SaaS, and you know, your account manager will, or we will happily show you those applications. Does that do what you want? Is your customer, is your organization happy to run a cloud model? So I said, you know, what's your IT strategy? And so if the cloud does what you want, if the cloud model works for you, then look at cloud, or look at cloud first, but consider it. And I love the cloud applications. I love the on-premise ones as well, but you know, I think you will find that they can do an awful lot for your organization. Now, some organizations have an IT policy that isn't happy for cloud, and the reasons for that might be, it could be your financial model. Some people don't want to go from a capital program to a revenue program. Still talk to us, we can look at options for that. Some people, it's more about cloud itself, so their organization may need more security than they believe a cloud provider will give them. That's rare from a security point of view, but it could be around data residency. So if you're in Europe or the Americas, then that's not a problem. But there are still pockets around the world that that Oracle don't have a data center in, and then there may be data privacy reasons why you don't want to go to a public cloud. And Oracle have options for that as well. So they have what's called, well, it was called Cloud at Customer. I think they've changed the name there. But the idea is that Oracle turn up with the infrastructure that you need, put it in your data center, but then they can then run that remotely for you. So you get exactly the same service as any other cloud customer. It's just physically, because of data residency, in your building. Occasionally we come across organizations that for their industry, they have reasons why they can't go to a public cloud. And again, that Cloud at Customer might work, or the equivalent of it today. But Oracle have just recently announced something called Oracle Alloy, which is the ability for a partner to, very much like our private cloud, but the ability for a partner to provide Oracle Cloud services on their behalf. The first customer for this Oracle Alloy is actually a partner in, I think it was in Africa, or it could have been Saudi. I only heard about it a couple of days ago, so if you're interested, I will find out, ask the questions and I'll find out for you. But basically, there's a place where Oracle have a public cloud, and that's available to customers, but the government have not yet cleared it for government data. But there is an Oracle partner who is cleared for Oracle data. And so they're going to run the cloud like a private cloud in their organization, and then provide that to the government that way. And that helps both Oracle and the customer to get what they want, which is the cloud functionality and technology and security, but in a way that suits that industry. So there are lots of different models for this, but the majority, 99% of customers, the public cloud is really secure and will work for their industry. Now, what if SaaS doesn't give you everything that you want? What if there is functionality that's missing for your organization or for your industry? And then, because there's this belief that you can't customize cloud. You can't access the code in cloud, therefore you can't customize it. And again, that's another myth. Well, it's not a myth, it's absolutely true. You cannot get to the code to make changes to that code. But it's a myth that you can't allow it to do extra things. It's just the way that it's done. So you can extend the cloud applications in two main ways, internally and externally. So that sounds like a bit of a contradiction to say that you can extend it internally, but so it's got phenomenal configuration options. So how does it work? So first of all, you may be able to do it through configuration. And one of the things that we pride ourselves on is we've done so many of these that we probably understand how configuration can help you. The other way internally, let's take HCM, so the people module. Oracle's My Experience platform allows you to extend internally, so change the way that people consume the functionality. So not changing the security, not changing the underlying functionality, but changing the way that people consume it. And then extending externally, Oracle have an applications platform that contains Visual Builder, which gives you the same look and feel as the SaaS, and allows you to build out an application so that you can coexist. And Apex, so Oracle's low-code tooling in the database, also allows you to build those extensions. And I have seen some phenomenal extensions that customers have built where they have an industry or a organization need to have additional functionality. And in InnoApps, we've actually built a whole library of these extensions which are industry focused. We do a lot in energy, and we do a lot in construction and in higher education. And in many cases, we have built extensions or standalone applications that run in coexistence with the cloud to address those specific needs. And then if you've got an organization need on top of that, then we can build a custom extension for you there. And actually, that is no different to any other coexistence. Coexistence just means two or more applications running together. And what we see a lot of, and therefore this whole presentation is not an either or, so we see a lot of customers who say, do you know what? I love my on-premise application. I love my e-business suite. I love my Hyperion planning. I love my JD Edwards, right? But it doesn't do everything I want. And the bit that I want that's in the cloud, I don't need to replace everything. So it's very common to see people take e-business suite financials and add Oracle Cloud HCM to it, wrap that around it. So those two will coexist. It's very common to see people who've never had Hyperion before, because most Hyperion on-premise customers are traditional customers before even Oracle bought Hyperion. But there's a lot of Oracle customers who are happy using eBusiness Suite or PeopleSoft or JD Edwards, but they like what Hyperion offers them, and they've taken the cloud version, they've taken PBCS, and they're using that to add value to what they've already got. So they're coexisting with that. And then you see people who've got the cloud applications, all the on-premise applications, and who say, do you know what? There are some industry extensions, well, some industry applications that Oracle have. It might be supply chain planning, it might be logistics, it might be Primavera for projects, and we're going to coexist those with our application. Because, you know, put it bluntly, no application runs on its own. No organization has just one application. So you're probably all going to have some kind of coexistence. So what we've walked through here today is just those things to consider, right? If a flow chart like this was all you needed, I'd be out of a job. Okay, it's not as simple as saying, hey, you know, I remember when I was at school, we had flow charts like this that told us, you know, what dress to wear or what pop star we should follow or whatever. If it was that simple, it would be easy. It's not. But what this does is visualize the sort of things that you should be considering, that you as an organization should be considering. So at the beginning, I said, you know, if you want me to go through this again with your organization so we can talk about, you know, well, you're using this product and you're on this version, we can have some of that conversation. It won't be a full roadmap, because actually a roadmap is how do you get to your chosen, destination. And here, what you're really trying to do is work out what should that destination be. And so we're talking about the considerations to get to that point. And if you want to have a look at that in your organization, then let us know, and we'll do this presentation again, but with just your organization. And you can bring your colleagues along and we can have a conversation. Okay? So, do I have any questions?
Thank you, Deborah. We did have a few questions come in, so I will go through and ask those at this time. And I just want to remind all of our attendees again that if you have any questions, go ahead and type those into the questions box so we can get those answered for you. So Deborah, the first question that we got was, you have covered application and technology, but what about the people or support differences?
So I touched a little bit on, well, I made the comment about sometimes people say, oh, I want a managed service because my support team are all retiring. So that's as close as I got. So is it the same to support cloud than, let's say, e-business suite? Well, no, it isn't the same. So I think that's a scary thing in itself. And Oracle talk about, oh, don't worry about that. We do everything for you. This is a cloud system. Well, they do in as much as your DBA won't need to look after your database. But actually, I bet your DBA does an awful lot more than look after your database. I bet your DBA understands whatever reporting solution you're using. I bet your DBA looks after all of your patching and works closely with your testing people. And there's a lot more to it than just that, oh, you don't need a DBA. So your support function will probably, if I look at the average support function that I see when I'm talking to customers, will have amazing subject matter experts. So they may be technical, but they really understand your business and they understand how it's being used by the end users. And you will still need those people. You will still need them to be able to triage issues that customers have. You will still need them to, so in the cloud, you get updates. So for most of the cloud products, the updates are quarterly. In the Hyperion cloud, they can be a little bit more often. But those will happen. Today on premise, you determine whether or not you want an update and you plan when that update happens. That's not true in cloud, it happens. You can't opt out, it happens. You choose what month it happens, but you can't choose. No, even that's wrong. You can say, I'm in cohort 1, 2, or 3, and that will determine which months you get them in, but you can't choose then, oh, well, this time I'll have it this month and next time I'll have it that month. You can't do that. They come. This is a train and the train is coming and it's got stops to make and it will stop at those stops at those times. But it's not scary. It seems scary because it's so different, but I've done this, InnoApps have done this hundreds of times, and it's not scary like that. It's a new operating model for you, and your team need to adjust to that. And that's why we have a team around enterprise change. It's not just around the changes that you need to follow new processes or the cultural change that your organization needs to have a new application and the training that's needed. It's also that operating model. What will your business as usual look like? Now, some organizations think, actually, this is a time for me to go to a managed service. And very often, and I would say the best way, is that you still have a managed service provider, and the answer will be us, but you have a managed service provider that works hand in hand with your team and combines that knowledge of your users with our knowledge of the applications and helps you on that new model. It will be a new business as usual model, but we can help your teams to understand that. So it is different, but it shouldn't be scary. It should be exciting and a new challenge, and it will work better for your organization. So I hope that answers that question.
Great, thank you. Our next question was, if I don't want to move for 5 to 6 years, is there anything that I should do now?
So they say that there's nothing guaranteed in life except for change, right? So even if you said, hey, my system works well today and I'm happy with it, I will move eventually, but I'll probably be 5 or 6 years away. There's a 10-year window. I've explained that that 10-year window is rolling. But I often see this. I see customers who go through this process, and I think you should go through this process. And I also think you should go through this process every year, because things will change. Your company strategy may change, your business may change. So I think you should keep looking at it. And bearing in mind, the product that you're comparing will also change. The cloud products get updated, get added to what they call continuous innovation every 3 months. So I would review this once a year. Okay, put a little time in once a year to review this. But let's say you think, yes, I like that, I will move to cloud, but I'm going to sweat my asset, I'm going to get some more out of it, or it's not my priority. It's really important this year that we have a new front office system for manufacturing, because that's what our organization does, right? So this isn't our number one priority, we'll do it in a few years. Or we're very busy with an acquisition at the moment, so we're going to leave it a few years. But there may be things that you need. There may be, you know, it's not easy. It's not a push button. You don't migrate by pushing a button from eBusiness Suite to cloud applications. It will take time. And that time will depend on things like how big a footprint you're going for. It might be how fast you can consume the change. So Oracle will tell you that a good partner will do it really fast for you. I can do it really fast for you. However, you may not be able to consume that speed, and you may have other conflicting priorities, and so you may want to do it over a longer period of time. You will also have challenges like your data. Have you got too much data? How much data are you going to bring over? What are you going to do with the historic data? Is that data of good quality? A very simple example in eBusiness Suite. Prior to 11, we had each legal entity had its own version of suppliers, and then Oracle brought in trading community architecture. And then you would have one supplier with sites for your different legal entities. When you move over, do you want those 20 versions of the same supplier to come over? Or we wouldn't do that. We would have one version of that supplier, because you get better purchasing if you've only got one view of that supplier. You get better, you know, it just works better. That's why Oracle brought it in then, but that's one of those bits of functionality that not everybody took up. They took it up from a technical point of view, but they didn't move their data. So if you said to me, I'm going to be doing this in 6 years, if you said to me, I'm going to be doing this now, that is an exercise we would have to do. And that might take a couple of months on its own. But actually, if you were going to do your move in 5 to 6 years, you could do this as a little project now, and then you would get value out of it today, because you'd get that ability to see your suppliers better. But then you would really benefit from it in a few years' time when you came to move, because that would be one less thing you had to do. So there are lots of things that we can look at, and that's a very frequent thing that we do, is that we do this exercise and people determine when they want to go, if they want to go. And then they say, okay, we're thinking about this in such and such a time. Give us a roadmap that will help us to move to it slowly. Do that frequently. I also think there's another thing you should be considering when you're doing your roadmap, and that is, what are my challenges today? And that doesn't mean what's my list of errors that I've got. It might mean, well, we don't do this in eBusiness Suite today, but we've got a challenge around planning, our budgeting. And then I might say, well, do you know what? You can use the same cloud planning with EBS as you would use when you move to cloud. So why not implement that early? Because it will give you the functionality today and solve that challenge today. And that's another thing that you wouldn't have to do when you moved forward. So I do that quite a lot with customers. Look at things that they can do today that will prepare them for the future, but give them value today without actually starting the move today. So this is about considering where you want to be going to, and pure road mapping would include all of those little stages that you could do to get there, and how long that might be for your organization, which is why the first question is, what does your organization do and what's its strategy? Okay.
Great, thank you so much, Deborah. So I'm just being conscientious of time here. I see that we're starting to reach our end point. So I'm gonna conclude the questions with that. But I know we did get a few more questions in, so I just want to let those people know that if you did ask a question that we have not answered at this point, we will be following up with you after the session to provide the answers to your questions.
No problem. So the audience today was probably around Hyperion EBS because that's how we advertised it. But as I said, we work with lots of the Apps Unlimited customers, and I just wanted to share a few things with you as I finish off. So next week we have another webcast, which is a customer that went from JDE to cloud. It's very much an energy organization, and it's a brilliant story. If you have any interest in moving from wherever, a complete transformation, then I would really recommend that presentation next week. And then we're coming into conference. I don't know where people are based, but we're coming into conference season. So yesterday I had a customer in London, so it was Cloud World Tour London yesterday. We were talking to one there, but as we come into the global user group conferences, and I started by saying that I was passionate about them. The first one is Blueprint, so JDE, PeopleSoft customers, and people who've already moved to cloud. We have a number of presentations there covering moving from JDE, life after JDE, and then some cloud information. We are looking deep into the HCM cloud and the My Experience platform at Ascend. And then at Kscope, which is more the technology tools, I'm looking at extending cloud applications in a number of presentations. But what I would say is, I'm not just plugging those sessions, but if you or your organization are attending them and you want to meet up, then reach out. I'll take you for coffee, we'll have a chat, and you see how, just reach out and say, can we have a chat? And I'm more than happy to do that for those events as we go through the summer. And of course, we will be at Cloud World in Vegas in September. So that's me finished, and I think that's almost perfect timing.
Great, Deborah. Thank you so much. At this time, I just want to thank everyone again for taking the time to join us today. And as a reminder, if there are any additional questions that you have, or if you would like to have a one-on-one conversation with us regarding road mapping for your on-premise applications, please feel free to reach out to us and we would be happy to do that with you. Thank you all again. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.